This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, President Obama is expected to unveil a revised Afghanistan strategy Friday that will focus on expanding and improving the Afghan National Police Force. The Afghan police have been the target of recent attacks, and insurgents killed 9 police officers and injured 6 in the southern and central parts of the country Thursday. Richard Holbrooke, the special envoy to Pakistan and Afghanistan, told a security conference in Brussels last Saturday that the president's new plan would address the widespread perception that the police are, quote, the weak link in the security chain. President Obama's revised Afghanistan policy is also expected to send more troops to counter the Taliban's expanding influence in the southern part of the country, which the New York Times reports is made possible by direct support for the Taliban by operatives in Pakistan's military intelligence agency. Investigative journalist and CorpWatch managing editor Pratap Chatterjee traveled recently to Afghanistan and asked a number of Afghans what they would like to see from the new American president. Here is a short report.
One of the top priorities for President Barack Obama is how to tackle the growing power of the Taliban and the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan. CorpWatch and KPFA met with a number of Afghans, from students to parliamentarians, to ask them what they think the new president should do. Sitting in his darkened flat during a power cut, Mir Ahmed Joinder, a member of the Afghan parliament, made several recommendations for the new president.
First of all, they should build Afghan army. For Afghan army to have an Afghan strong army to be able to defend the country. Second was, they should use blunt attacks by B-52 or Chinook or pilotless planes. They should have Afghan guides. They should have a coordination with the Afghan army for any military operation they are doing. Thirdly, they should change their policy on the economic development of Afghanistan. He should focus. The people should understand. It should be tangible for the people to have the change in their lives for Afghanistan.
The Obama administration plan to increase troop levels in Afghanistan is destined for failure, says Tariq Osman, a former Taliban official who now works for the Asia Foundation.
The Afghan will never accept the military presence of any country, even if that's Saudi Arabia, if that's US. And based on that reason, increasing troops will not give them anything rather than more problems and more challenges. I think if he take action on this, this will be another mistake by US.
Some parliamentarians are even calling for negotiations with the Taliban, like Faizullah Zeki, a Northern Alliance member of the Afghan parliament.
A proverb in Persian which says, it means that when it is still possible to untie a knot by your fingers, do not do it by your teeth. So this means that whenever it's possible to solve a problem through negotiating, you don't have to fight.
Students at the American University in Kabul said that they hope that the new administration will fulfill Obama's campaign slogan of change by making a clean break with all the Bush administration's policies.
As Mr. Obama says, the change we need, and he's right, we need it in Afghanistan also.
Students agreed that Joinder's recommendation to train the local military should be top priority. Abdul Hakim Maraban, a business student at the American University in Kabul.
I would request Obama to change the strategy of their strategy that they are employing in Afghanistan, and they should send the troops that they could train the Afghan military, not the foreign military, because we are happy for they can do capacity building for them. In many places, the foreign troops go, hit the Taliban, and then go back. The foreign military cannot control that place because there are very few. They just go for the missions, and so there is no one to control that place then.
Shakila, a student from the Warda province at the American University in Kabul, said that she liked Obama's campaign promise to increase non-military aid for basic needs like education.
I like Obama's idea about the non-military assistance to Afghanistan. I think we need to focus on the educational system.
This plea for non-military aid for Afghans was echoed by ordinary citizens such as this Baba in Kabul's Shahrinau district.
The next president of the United States, Barack Obama, he's the one, right? I think he should provide more aid to Afghanistan, more assistance to Afghanistan. He should not forget Afghanistan. He shouldn't just say things now that he's the president of the United States and leave the job incomplete in Afghanistan.
Obama has asked for $75 billion for the war in Afghanistan and Iraq in his 2009 budget. Whether any of this money will trickle down to ordinary citizens in the remote rural provinces of Afghanistan who still lack basic services like water and electricity remains to be seen. For CorpWatch and KPFA, I'm Pratap Chatterjee with Ronald Nobu Sakamoto in Kabul.
Pratap Chatterjee is also the author of the new book, Halliburton's Army, How a Well-Connected Texas Oil Company Revolutionized the Way America Makes War. In a recent article for CorpWatch, Chatterjee analyzes President Obama's new strategy for Afghanistan and asks who will win the contracts to train the Afghan police and soldiers. Well, Pratap Chatterjee joins us now here in our Firehouse studio to answer that question and more. Welcome, Pratap. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Juan.
That analysis of what President Obama is about to unveil?
Well, this strategy is supposed to be released tomorrow, Friday, or early next week before he heads to Brussels for the NATO summit. And in that, he's expected to say that they're going to ramp up the number of soldiers and police to 400,000, doubling that. And one of their problems, there have been GAO reports for the last 5 years, and each year they come up with the same answer, that the police and the army are ineffective. In fact, there was a 2008 report that said after spending $10 billion, 0% of Afghan police were actually capable. About 3% were able to do maneuvers with the U.S. So they've actually launched a new strategy called Focused District Development, which involves DynCorp, which is this company from Virginia, taking the police out of their districts for 8 weeks training. The entire district trains with DynCorp, and then they get reinserted. And now, supposedly, the success rate has risen from 0 to 3% to 19%. So they have asked, the Pentagon has asked to ramp up this civilian police training strategy and introduce a lot more, civilian trainers throughout Afghanistan. The trouble with that is they haven't even been able to get the number of police trainers they need in the first place. And the kind of police trainers they're hiring, a lot of them are people, they're people with beat cop experience, from Kansas or Washington. And a lot of the DynCorp police trainers I've met in places like Iraq, not in Afghanistan, say that they're overwhelmed. They're not really prepared to train people to fight a civil war.
And Pratap, on this particular trip, what parts of the country were you able to visit? And also, what was your sense in terms of the general population, how it's viewing this extended and continued U.S. and foreign occupation?
Well, I went to Bamiyan in central Afghanistan, where the Buddhas were blown up. And I went to Mazar-e Sharif in the north, and I was actually revisiting this. I'd been there 7 years before, right after the fall of the Taliban. And, of course, I went to Kabul. And my sense was that people, as in the previous video, people are very interested in seeing local security being, bolstered. They would like to see much more power in the hands of local people, because as the students were saying, when the Americans come in and they start bombing people and then they leave, the mess is left for the Afghans to clean up. So a lot of people actually would like to see a foreign presence. They would like to see a multilateral presence, but they would like to see it support the local capacity, and that's what they feel like doesn't exist. And the trouble with Americans coming in and having their own strategy is, and bombing people in Pakistan on the border, is that, in fact, it defeats sometimes, what might happen locally.
Pratap, I wanted to go with you to Bamiyan here, this piece that you have done in central Afghanistan, once home to the iconic Buddhist statues, to look at how life has changed for the people of the region since the U.S.-led invasion in 2001. Pratap files this report.
Afghanistan is world famous for the giant statues of the Buddha that were carved into the hillsides behind me centuries ago. In 2001, the Taliban blew these statues up. Since they were ousted 7 years ago, UNESCO has poured millions of dollars into preserving the architectural heritage of this area. Yet the surrounding community lacks electricity, potable water, and has just one proper hospital. CorpWatch and KPFA traveled by land on the Parwan Road to the remote interior Bamiyan province to investigate what had happened to the ethnic Hazara refugee community. We found that after hundreds of Hazara villages in the surrounding communities were killed by the Taliban in the late 1990s and buried in mass graves, thousands fled to other parts of the country and even as far away as Iran to avoid persecution. Today, many have returned, but as Shah Ali, a peasant who had hidden in Ghazni, explains, they still live a very hard life in villages like Samara because of the lack of any reconstruction projects to provide them with basic services like clean water and electricity.
As you can see with my hand,